The slideshow that's been prepared really is geared towards people who don't know much about Adelaide University and also about the business school. So what I'm going to do is focus a little bit more on what the business school has to offer rather than anything else. And if you have any questions, then just put your hand up or shout out and I'll try to answer them. And we have two people here, Linda and Edwin, and they can also chip in if you can add anything extra to that as well. Okay, so my name is Ralph, by the way. I'm currently the head of School of Accounting and Finance. Currently there are two schools that make up the business school. It's a bit strange and we're reorganizing that. So in a month's time there's just going to be one big business school. But under that there are four major disciplines. So four major research and teaching areas. They are management, marketing, finance and accounting. And within them they have different type of postgraduate degrees that you can take. And some, of course, are shared throughout all of them. So, for example, a good case in point would be the MBA. The Masters of Business Research are for those who've done an undergraduate degree before, plus also have some executive experience, and they can actually qualify for the MBA. And you learn a bit of everything, from marketing, management, finance, accounting, you name it. It basically goes across everything, leadership, HR. But there are also specialist master's programs that you can take, and what I'm referring to here are master's coursework programs. So if you're interested in research, I'm also happy to talk to you about that, but it's probably best if you put your hand up because that's a slightly different type of degree program that you then need to follow. So what I'm referring to here are pretty much those that are taught masters, and you can, as long as you have an undergraduate degree, you qualify. So that's very different, for example, if you want to do a master's by research. You have to have done a research, you probably have to have done a degree in a certain field before you can actually do further studies. So we call these broadening master's degrees, and why they're called broadening master's degrees is because you might have done, as you just mentioned over here, so an arts degree before, but you want to do something completely different. Maybe you want to move into, as you said, marketing, and you've done, I don't know, sports science before, then this is the type of degree that we're basically talking about now. So although I'm focusing on the masters, within the masters we have what are called nested programs. So you can, for example, graduate with a graduate certificate or a graduate diploma, and that's like doing a half or a quarter of the master's degree. Most master's degrees that we offer last for 2 years. Some are 1.5 years. This is the standard throughout Australia. So in Australia, behind the scenes, you will not know this, although you're our customers, basically students, behind the scenes there are rules and regulations that universities have to follow in terms of what comprises of a master's degree. And in that there has to be a little bit of a research component. It has to have a certain number of courses, equivalent of about 2 years worth of programs. It can be cut down to 1.5. So these are pretty much standardized across the board in terms of it doesn't matter which university you go to, you'll have the same sort of setup. So the difference basically is what type of education you get basically doing the degree here versus some other place. Here in South Australia, you don't really have a big choice, to be quite frank. You've got us, Adelaide, you've got the University of South Australia, and you've got Flinders. So although many people like to say, oh well, you know, they're not as good as us, etc., I'm not that type of person. I think roughly speaking, they're all pretty much about the same. Adelaide University is the university of choice by and large simply because of the fact we're the most established and we're also the most research intensive. So what does that mean is that, as I'm sure as you are, a lot of you are here graduates anyway, or are going to be graduates, G8 universities. So there are 8 universities in Australia that make up 80% of all research funding, and we're one of them. So all the other universities in Australia, there are about 40 odd of them, they're not research intensive. So we're the only research intensive university in Adelaide, which basically means the people who are teaching you, including myself, are going to be research focused, and that changes the type of discussion that you have and the type of teaching you have. Particularly at the master's level. At the undergrad level you might not notice it because usually it's based on textbooks, right? At the postgrad level, some of it's still based on textbooks, but then you get to a point in time when you're reading actually research papers or you're looking at policy documents or what's going on in the real world, and so that takes it to another level. So that's basically the demarcation between us and the other universities here in South Australia. We also have a different focus on what we're good at. So for example, it would be fair to say that we are by and large the best in teaching finance. We also have a very strong reputation for the MBA program. It's just been released a couple of weeks ago, I think it was, that we've made the top 5 in Australia. So if you go back 10 years ago, the Adelaide MBA wasn't anywhere to be seen. But over the years, because I guess you could say both the failings of other universities and how we've basically packaged and grew from our strength, we're now basically within the top 5. That's a very big improvement, and it's quite impressive. So if you are looking at doing an MBA, what counts, in my opinion, is not only the reputation but also the networking. Going back some years ago, it probably wouldn't be that useful, but nowadays it is. And if you're in the top 5, you're going to be able to network with other people, particularly in South Australia. And that is what a lot of people say is one of the significant benefits of doing the MBA. So if you're just wondering, that's sort of, I would say, why do an MBA? That would be pretty much it.
Good question.
It is. There is a lot of other things you can do with regards to MBA. In fact, of course, it's a broadening course. You learn a little bit about everything. But if you want to specialize, because it might improve your, I would say, chances of getting a better job. Nowadays, unfortunately, something I got, again, you know, even though I've been in the education sector for many years, it's not something I particularly like. Over the years, everything has been, I would say, diminished a little bit in terms of what it is required to go out there and say, I have a degree that can differentiate myself from somebody else. It used to be that an undergraduate, a bachelor's degree was enough to say, yes, I am different. I've studied for 3 years. Then suddenly became honours, master's degrees. So unfortunately, what employers are now looking for are far more pieces of paper, far more degrees than they have ever before. And it's a bit of a shame, but that's essentially how the market is. So a lot of the times, for example, in the finance industry, which I work in, unless you have a master's degree that's specialized towards, for example, what's referred to as the CFA, the Chartered Financial Analysts Association, it's a certain type of professional association that sets guidelines of what type of knowledge you need to know, then you might not even meet the interview round. They'd sort of just dismiss you straight away. So I guess maybe because the graduate market just keeps on getting a bit more competitive. It's what's basically required. So what do we offer in terms of the masters? I'm going to go through them so you have a rough idea, and also to make sure I don't skip anything. First of all, there's a general commerce master's degree, a Master of Commerce, and what this gives you is the most flexibility. You can go into the commerce degree. There are a few foundation courses that you have to start off with. That is compulsory. But after that, you can pretty much pick and choose across a whole realm of different type of subject matter, from marketing, management, wine business, to finance, accounting. You can really make your own program as you see fit. So the advantage is it gives you the biggest flexibility. The disadvantage is that you walk away with something that maybe doesn't specialize or take you in a certain direction. Okay? So there's an advantage and a disadvantage to this type of program. Now, if we look at specialist masters, one of them is the Masters of Marketing. It's a 1.5-year program. You need an undergraduate degree, and it's taught in trimesters. So that actually speeds up the time in which you can complete the degree. If you're going to do it full-time, then rather having what you usually expect in an undergrad degree of 2 semesters, you've now got 3 trimesters, so you can actually pack in more. But it is quite tough to do it that way, but it is possible if you want to get the degree done fast. And of course, as you can imagine, it leads you into advertising and marketing sort of careers. And again, it's also most of our, if not all of our specialist programs are accredited or certified in one form or another with the major professional organizations. So I'm not a marketing person, so I'm not too familiar with it, but you can see you can get credit depending on what courses I guess you're taking within the marketing degree for Certified Practicing Marketer qualification, and also with the awarded by the Australian Marketing Institute. International Management is another degree. One thing that stands out with this degree compared to other ones is that it encourages you to look at going on study tours and internships abroad. We have a limited number of internships, but they can be found, and if you're lucky enough, you can then you compete with others and you can go abroad and spend 6 months in another country. And also we offer a number of study tours which last for a few weeks in other countries to broaden your horizons basically, and that you also get credit towards within your degree. Professional accounting would be the largest, the most popular master's degree that we have in terms of student numbers. And the reason being, although it's very, well, okay, I'm being recorded here, so I shouldn't say this. I was going to say, although it's very boring to study accounting, still to this day, it sort of guarantees you pretty much a job. Why? You've got your Masters of Accounting. I mean, I don't offer a guarantee, but essentially speaking, the big four accounting firms, so KPMG, Deloitte, etc., along with all the smaller accounting firms, they're always looking for auditors, young blood to come in. They serve for a couple of years, and then you sort of like, they wean you out. And so doing a Masters of Accounting, apart from the fact giving you credit towards becoming a CPA or CA, which are the two qualifications that people need if you're going to become an accountant, it also ensures that there is demand there for you when you graduate. So this basically forms probably the largest cohort of students we have. Finance is where I'm from. It's very similar to accounting, but it is a little bit different. It's a little bit more mathematical, so it appeals to people who like a little bit of maths in their degree. And where does it lead to? Again, it's geared towards those people which are pursuing the CFA qualification, which is again a professional standing. And people who've done finance, I'd say the majority leave South Australia and they go to Sydney and Melbourne, where of course is the big finance sector, but the rest do stay around and they take on multiple jobs in banks or other financial institutions or finance firms, or even in general businesses working as a finance officer. So that's if you're going into finance. We talk about banking, financial markets, but also more basic things like corporate finance. How do you value a firm? How do you ensure that you get funding for the company that might not be listed? So there's a number of things that we cover there. We've also got the MBA. I've talked a little bit about that before. We like to highlight the fact, of course, we're very proud to say that now we're in the top 5 of MBAs in Australia. How long does the program last? It's 2 years?
It's
1.5 years,
so there's 12 units altogether.
But do most people don't do it full time, do they?
Part-time,
Yeah.
which would take you between 3 and 4 years depending on your study loads.
Yeah.
If you're doing it full-time, it could be knocked out within 1.5 years quite easily.
I could be mistaken, majority do it part-time, don't they?
Yes, I think
Okay,
it's
good.
close to 90% of our students.
Okay, good. It's taught in trimesters. There's also summer schools and intensive modes. So this is probably the most flexible of learning that we have in the degree programs. You can do it in various different type of ways. There's a mentoring program, and also we also offer international exchanges as well.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
When you say 1.5 years full-time, or yes, and 5 years part-time, is there nothing in between?
Yes, everything in between.
So,
So,
sorry, roughly what hours are we talking about full-time? This is what's most
I
important.
think it'd be close to 10 hours outside of subject time per subject.
Mhm.
So
Take hours?
yes.
I'll talk about that. I'll come to that. Yeah, I'll come to that. Wine business is another degree that we also offer. Of course, as you probably know, South Australia is very famous for its wine, and we're one of the few universities around the world, in fact, to offer a wine business degree if you want to specialise down that path. And of course, that doesn't mean that you work for a winery. You can work for wine merchants and those that basically procure wines, import and exporting, all those type of things. That's the type of degree that could be useful for you. We've also got a family enterprise graduate certificate. I don't know too much about this, but from my understanding, it's quite popular, and it's split into two groups. So one is referred to as a next generation leadership stream, and the second is advising business family stream. What is the difference between the two? Well, a graduate certificate focus on the first stream is if you are actually running a family business and you want to learn a little bit more about how can you manage it more efficiently and effectively, whereas the second stream's mainly geared for those who provide advice, who are consultants towards family businesses. So there's a slight difference between the two. I'm sure there's a lot of overlap. And because this is a graduate certificate, it only takes 6 months full-time to complete. We have a global food and agricultural business degree as well. And again, because South Australia, one of its major exports is agriculture, we have a focus on agribusiness here as well. So that may appeal to you. And if it does, then this is a degree for you. We have economics, offered by the School of Economics. International trade and development. I'm just skipping through these, not in so much detail because none of you seem to be as interested in them, but if you are, just let me know. And a business law degree as well. And this is taught, you might notice, in intensive mode, which basically means it's either be done in, you might have a course that lasts for 1 week, right? In constant, like, but you're learning from 9 to 5. I'm sort of making it up a little bit here. And so you get it done very quickly. Or it could be split up, whereby you spend a weekend, and then a month later there'll be another weekend, and then a month after that there might be an exam, and in between you have to do a lot of your own research and preparatory work. We have a 1.5-year Masters in Project Management. And this is good if you, well, as the title indicates, you like managing large projects. And of course, this could be from everything from construction to general finance and banking. We've also got here disaster relief. I know the person that runs this does a lot of, or used to do a lot of work, I believe, in South Africa for philanthropic purposes. We have a Master's in Innovation and Entrepreneurship. There's also scholarships on offer for this particular degree. Not a lot of our master's degrees offer scholarships, so this is one exception to the rule. And basically the idea is to develop an entrepreneurial mindset. So basically prepare you for how do you run your own little startup, the pros and cons, things that you might encounter, how to overcome them. So that's the purpose of this degree. Good. So what I'm going to do, because I did skip a few slides, and I have had one question clearly about this, and I think everybody's interested in this. Where are we going to go? Good. Okay. What does a postgraduate study involve? For the vast majority of you here, because you're current undergrad students, you have a rough idea of what is expected of you. And I think this is also the case because there's not that much difference between the MBA and the Master Specialist. It's 4 courses a trimester for full-time, is that correct, or 3?
I think 3 is what most people do. Full-time would be quite a lot of stress.
Okay, all right. So for the Specialist Masters, which generally is done in a full-time framework, most students do it full-time, it's 4 courses a semester, but it seems with the MBA it's 3. Yeah? Okay. What does a course involve? So the course involves usually 2 to 3 hours of face-to-face time. So that would be, depending on what course you do, it can vary. It may be a 3-hour seminar with a lecturer, or it might be 2 hours of lectures and a 1-hour tutorial. What do I mean by that? Well, that you'll be more familiar with if you're an undergrad student here. So a 2-hour lecture could literally mean that you're in a classroom full of a lot of other students. Although it's face-to-face, it's really basically me or somebody else talking, going through subject matter, maybe asking a few questions. And then after that, you have a 1 hour tutorial where you might have 14 to 21, usually, students in a tutorial class. So it's a little bit more personal, and you work through questions and answers and other difficulties that you might encounter you can go through as well. So how much time do you have to take to study a particular course? So the undergraduate courses in the 3rd year sort of are similar to what you can expect in the master's courses. If you're looking at, well, is there an increase in workload? The answer is yes, there is a little bit increase in workload. So a master's course does involve a bit more than an undergrad course at the 3rd year, but it's not that different. I would say that you should probably, I would say maybe double or 2.5 times the amount of face-to-face contact time you have. So if you're doing 3 hours of face-to-face, I'd say between 3 and 6 hours of individual study would be required. But that's not every week. What happens is that you might get away with not doing very much the first few weeks, then suddenly there's an assignment that you have to prepare for, and you're spending your whole week doing it. But in total, I would say it's somewhere between 3 to 6 hours of individual study for every 3 hours of face-to-face time. That's sort of roughly what most students spend. Obviously, it's very individual. Some students spend a lot less than others, and that sometimes reflects on their grades. But generally speaking, that's sort of what you're looking for. Does that vary for the MBA?
I think it is a bit more for the MBA.
Okay.
From what I understand, it is very close to 10 hours a week.
Okay. Well, that would be about the same then, because if you're only doing 3 courses, then each course involves a bit more study time. So the total for full-time will be the same for the MBA as it is for a master's degree. In the course outlines, the university dictates there needs to be a total of 36 hours devoted to a particular course in terms of face-to-face time. And then on top of that, you usually can expect double that in terms of the amount of preparatory time that you have to spend. So that's sort of roughly how it works out. You also have, with all the degrees now, if you cannot attend a lecture, of course, you can watch it online. But depending on what type of course you do, attendance might be more important. Why do I say that? If you're doing something like marketing, or definitely the MBA, it's going to be much more hands-on than if you're doing a course such as what I teach, which is looking at options and futures of derivative markets. So the little equations, you can basically get that a little bit more from the online materials, and it'll be more important to attend the tutorials. So depending on what course you're doing will dictate whether you should really be turning up for the face-to-face time or not. Okay. With regards to assessment, it does vary a lot. So all I can say is that there will be a minimum of about, I don't know anyone who sets less than there's, I'm trying to think if I know any course that has only 2 assessments, but the answer is no. I think they all have a minimum of 3. So somewhere between 3 and 5 assessments throughout the length of the course. And that varies between maybe doing some mid-semester tests to assignments, presentations, and examinations. Is usually a mixture of the whole gamut of different ways of assessing a student. Good. A question that I cannot answer, and I'm not sure if yourselves can, but does get raised quite often when I give these type of presentations, is not so much the application process, which we can help you with, but the fees. I have no clue what you have to pay. All I do know is that if you're a domestic student, you can possibly get some assistance through fee help, which is a government student loan process. And for international students, you have to basically follow the degree finder to work out what the costs are. Good. So on that note, I am very happy to take any questions that you like. So what I'm going to suggest is the following. If you have any questions you'd like to ask me now in public, please do so. And then after, I'll hang around if you have individual questions, and we can talk face-to-face, one-to-one on that as well. Good. Anything else you wanted me to talk about?
Only
business schools worldwide. That's probably we're a Geo8 institution, which means we're in the elite group in Australia. So University of Adelaide is part of that elite group. So you're in good company to study business. So that's probably project management and entrepreneurship. We've got both of those come as online only programs. So if you didn't want to come in to do face-to-face, or you've got a business idea and you want to get it off the ground, that would be a good master's course to do if you're that way inclined. That's
Okay.
it. And as well as you touched on, there is a page on the scholarships that are open, which kind of gives you an indication of, it's got to be enrolled in a new course, but they're there to support new students, and they do make a considerable difference. So there's a page on the website for scholarships, whether you're a domestic or international student, so definitely check them out. That's it.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. So any questions?
Do we have access to this slideshow?
Yes,
It could be made
it'll
available, yeah.
online
Yeah.
tonight.
Cool.
Yeah. Good. Yes.
What's the GPA requirement for Masters in Marketing?
So we don't have, do we have a GPA requirement? We do.
Yeah.
5.0, okay, 5.0. So I'm not even aware of that. Yeah.
If you don't have an undergraduate certificate on certain course, will you allow to do some of the courses?
If you,
You don't have undergraduate qualification on certain courses.
there are some degrees here. What degree are you interested in?
Let's say finance.
Finance? You need an undergrad degree, from my understanding. You need an undergrad degree.
But if you have economic background, could you?
If you have an undergrad, you don't need an undergrad in finance, right?
Finance?
No, it could be an undergrad degree in anything. The idea of these courses, and I should make it a little bit more clear, we call them broadening courses, is that they allow you to move from one area to another. So you might have done 3 years in engineering, but you want to learn a little bit about finance, as you said, for example, or you've come from economics, you want to learn finance, then this is a type of degree that we offer. It's not what we say an advanced degree. So you might have done finance before and you want to learn even more. So that's a different type of stream. That's a different type of conversation. These are just broadening degrees. So if you've done an undergraduate economics degree, then definitely you can do a postgraduate coursework degree in any of the courses I've gone through, with the exception of the MBA, where you also have to have a work experience as well.
So are you suggesting that if you did an undergrad degree in finance,
Yes.
it wouldn't make sense to then do a master's of finance? Or?
Well, we do. What happens is the following. If you have done an undergrad in finance and you want to really do more finance, there are a lot of other options open to you. So you could consider doing honours, you can consider doing an MPhil, a Master's of Philosophy in Finance. You can also do the MCom, the Masters of Applied Finance, and what you do is substitutions. For courses that are very similar that you've covered in the undergrad, you'll do alternatives. But, if that's something that you're looking at, then I'd have that conversation with you, because I can tell you there's a number of other programs you're also eligible to rather than just do what we just talked about. So, yeah. Yes?
What are the pros and cons of doing the international business and development one and over the MBA?
Oh, I think that, you're just finishing your degree, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, for yourself, at this stage, we don't have what we call a green MBA. So what that implies is that you won't be eligible for the MBA.
Oh, yeah.
So you'd have to have management experience, work experience, not just any old work. It has to be management experience.
You need 2 years management experience. The average age of most MBA candidates is about 36. Some are younger, but they're quite extraordinary cases.
Oh, okay. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
So it's completely different. Also, the subject matter is going to be different. If you study international business or international management, it's geared towards more people who are looking for a career working for multinationals, going abroad and working, learning a bit more about other cultures, that type of thing. So it has a slightly different focus as well.
Yeah, right.
What does
Yeah, in fact, there's an interview, isn't there, that you go through. So you meet the MBA director, and you have to basically, you receive his blessing, so to speak, to go through. So the MBA does require a few extra steps to get in.
What about, sorry, the Masters of Innovation and Entrepreneurship? Does that require any extra steps to get in as well?
Standard entry.
Standard entry, yeah.
Just an undergraduate.
With the MBA, I think they prefer to book an appointment to discuss the MBA program prior to the session. That would be a good move to make.
I think yeah, I think in your case, you know, if you're not sure which one to do, definitely book in a meeting with Damien, that's the MBA director, because then you can find out a little bit more whether that's what you want to do anyway. So it doesn't cost you anything, so there's no loss there. Yeah.
If you don't want a one-on-one session straight away, we've got an MBA information night on the 27th of September, which you'll get to meet past students. I think some of the academics come along as well as Damien, and that way you can really get a full understanding of what the program entails and whether it is what you're seeking.
So what options do you have, if any, for someone who hasn't studied business or mathematics before? And
Yep. So it depends what you. I think honestly, before you decide to sign up, you want to have a feeling about what you'd like to do. Have you got a rough idea where you see yourself?
not really.
No. So look, I mean, one possibility, I did go through it. If you want, because you've done art, doing business is quite different. You may be one of the people who are suited to do the Masters of Commerce. It's essentially a generalistic degree. The other benefit is, if you're not sure whether you want to move into marketing or you like accounting, etc., you can enroll in the Masters of Commerce, and then after a semester you might have a clearer idea what you want to do, and then you change. That's possible. That's not too difficult. So I very much doubt you'll lose any time doing that you'll get course credits. So let's say you spend a semester, you talk to other students, then you think, oh, well, I think I want to do this. Then you can switch over. That's not a problem. That's one of the benefits of the Master of Commerce. You can't leave it too late.
Yeah.
If you leave it too late, then that's it. But for the first semester, for sure. After one semester, easily change over to any of the other programs.
And what about the accounting program?
Yep. The accounting program, I would say even in the first semester you're best off getting in there straight away, but it'll still work if you do enroll in the Master of Commerce. The accounting program, because it has to fulfill a certain number of requirements with regards to the CA and the CPA, is pretty heavy, loaded with accounting subjects. There's not lots of flexibility. So if you want to move into accounting, probably doing that straight off the bat would be safer. But again, you know what? I suggest if that really does appeal to you, I can get you to speak to an accounting academic, and you can get a better feel of whether that's the type of thing you like doing. So accounting involves numbers, pretty much adding, subtracting, dividing, multiplying. I'm not trying to demean or anywhere. That's sort of what, but there's lots of other things. You learn what's called management accounting, which is basically the study of how accounting affects your organization, which is quite interesting. So the fact is that you have to report in a certain way changes the culture of how the business functions. So that also is part of the study of accounting. So it's not just simply debits and credits and spreadsheets. There are other things involved as well. Yeah. Okay.
How would you compare the value of a master's degree versus an undergraduate degree?
Okay.
For me, when I finish semester one next year will be my final semester.
Yes.
And then I think it'll take me an extra year or a year and a half to get a Bachelor of Economics as well.
Yes.
I'm doing a marketing degree now because I've done some
Yep.
economics subjects
Yep.
or whatever.
Yep.
Do you think it would be I'm better off doing that, or is it more efficient just to get a Master's of Economics? Or
No, that's a good question. Look, people who do an undergrad in economics are those that are keen to work for government. They like taking economics honours students in for the Treasury, Foreign Affairs, the RBA, that type of thing. I can't really. I honestly, I'm very happy to give you advice, but I can't tell you whether it's better off to do a master's or a double degree. It's sort of, they both offer you something, and they definitely look good on your CV. Whether one's better than the other, that I can't really tell. It's sort of like you're getting close to like sort of them being roughly sort of equivalent. I mean, a double degree has always looked good, always has looked good for employers. But getting a master's, that is one up from an undergrad. So, yeah.
Are there any in the economics school? Is it only a Masters of Economics, or are there more specialised ones?
There's just an economics degree.
Okay.
There is a Masters of Finance and Business Economics you can take. That does exist. We haven't gone through all the different type of possibilities here. There are some double degrees you can do. That might appeal to you. So that gives you business economics courses plus finance.